program for you.
I bet you do.
Some of these songs are so old that we played them last year. Ken, how long have we been doing this? How many years?
I think this is number 14.
Well, I hope so. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not quite ready. I have to take my shirt off. Don't worry, there's another one underneath it. Another one underneath that.
Need help?
Just your
I always wanted to do this.
Just your patience. You'll all get it.
Oh, you got your glasses there.
All right. Tell them a story while they're waiting.
I'll tell you the story about this new banjo hide. We're gonna do this. Our second number is going to be about this, but as long as we're waiting, I'll tell it now. Traditionally, the best hide for a banjo is a groundhog. And this past few years, the hide that I had on here, which was an old piece of a bass drum, a drummer friend of mine gave me, which is usually calf hide, which is also quite good, was just too stretched out to really. Allan, where you got a pair? Where are my glasses? Anyway, so they were in your shirt.
Oh, then they are. That's better.
Anywho, last year I took a motorcycle trip down to Galax, down the Blue Ridge Parkway, and went to the build contest and everything. And on the way back, I stopped and picked up a roadkill, which I had been looking for all summer long. I had been carrying a knife, a hunting knife, and a pair of surgical gloves, and a plastic bag. Put this thing in, there was this plump, beautiful groundhog right up there in the middle of the Blue Ridge Parkway. And so I turned around and got him. He'd only just been bopped a little bit. He was a very clean carcass. I hadn't been in the sun too many hours when I came by. And so I parked the motorcycle on the shoulder and went up on top of the bluff and dug all the poison ivy out of the way so I could at least have a place to work. And I proceeded to sit there and skin him for the next half hour. He was already out in the sun enough that it was kind of tough to get the hide off. And I can't tell you how many people went by and saw that motorcycle down in the shoulder of the road and looked up and saw me squatting in the bushes. And I don't think they thought I was skinning a groundhog. Anyway, this is the hide from that groundhog. So we're going to play that in a bit. But I think Allan's got one to kick it off.
I don't have any stories, but I have a song. It's called Once I Had a Fortune.
A raccoon has a ring-round tail, possum tail goes bare, and the rabbit ain't got no tail at all but little bumps of hair. Fortune I lost it, fortune I wedded, fortune I lost it one day when I got
like so many of the Southern songs, the lyrics are slightly interpreted in many different ways, but they're absurd in a way. Mountain humor is absurd. And the thing about what's happened in this country with Irish tunes is when they were introduced, brought across the ocean by the settlers in the now South, they brought the music tunes, and then they added the words later on. So few Irish tunes have words. For few, especially the fiddle tunes. Well, there are some ballads, Irish ballads, but this is a different category. What do we got next?
Now we got the groundhog.
Oh, okay.
So here's one we can all sing. The chorus is, "Oh, groundhog." It celebrates all the many uses of this versatile critter.
Oh, groundhog. Right down the scale.
Yeah. And I know a lot of verses, and Alan knows a lot of verses, and we're just going to see what happens here.
That's the way it always works out. We'll see what happens.
Now shoulder up your gun and whistle up your dog. Shoulder up your gun and whistle up your dog. Go off to the woods for to catch a groundhog. Oh, groundhog. Run here, Sally, with a 10-foot pole. Run here, Sally, with a 10-foot pole. Thrust that whistle pig out of his hole. Oh, groundhog. Now I dug down, but I didn't dig deep. I dug down, but I didn't dig deep. And there lay the whistle pig fast asleep. Oh, groundhog. Now look at them fellas that are about to fall. Look at them fellas that are about to fall. They feel the britches won't button that ball. Oh, groundhog.
Now stand back, boys, and let's be wise. Stand back, boys, and let's be wise. I think I see his beaded eye. Oh, groundhog.
Well, you eat up the meat and save the hide. Eat up the meat and save the hide. Makes the best shoestring ever was tied. Oh, groundhog. Now look at them kids squealing and crying. Listen to them kids squealing and crying. They like groundhogs to fry. Oh, groundhog. Now here comes the granddad a-popping his cane. Here comes the granddad a-popping his cane. Swearing he'll eat them groundhog brains. Oh, groundhog. Got any more, Alan? Lay it on us.
First verse. Oh, Joe Digger, Sam and Dave. Oh, Joe Digger, Sam and Dave. They went for hunting on tar that day. Oh, groundhog.
There's a little piece of corn that laying on the shelf. Little piece of corn that laying on the shelf. You want any more, you can sing it yourself. Oh, groundhog. That's what happens.
See what I mean about the absurdity of all this? But country humor is especially pungent. Put it that way.
You should smell this groundhog hide.
But everything that we're playing now is from the southern Appalachian region, which includes reading from the north. I'd say Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Tennessee, Kentucky. Well, that's not quite right, but and then Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, and even a bit of Florida. So Florida's not entirely corrupt. Sorry about that, Trump. I go there all winter long, so there is such a thing as what's happening in Florida is not quite folk music. But it's spreading down there, and so is the dance. Honestly, do we have anybody out there that clogs? Anybody who would do a little clogging off stage? No? Oh, that's too bad. Of all the things I like to do best is to play for cloggers.
Well, anyway,
Well,
in the meantime,
I'll make a note about
the
the
program.
Okay.
Spent a long time working on this in the past 45 minutes. Might as well do it. Here's a song that I've actually had on my list to do here for the last 3 years, and we just haven't gotten it in. It's called "You'll Miss Me," and it comes from blind Alfred and Arvil Reed, recording from the 1929, in fact. Got a sweet little chorus that goes, "Oh, when I'm gone, you miss me. When I'm gone, you miss me. Some kind hearts will miss me. When I'm gone, when I'm gone, when I'm gone, you miss me. When I'm gone, you miss me. Some kind hearts will miss me when I'm gone." And I'd love it if we could all sing it. And in fact, if some of you would just sing, "When I'm gone, you miss me when I'm gone," and hold that, and the others kind of do the "you miss me" thing. You'll catch on. You can hear it. Until about 20 of, I suppose.
You run out of breath sometimes.
So. I'm getting old and feeble now, my hair is turning gray. My limbs that once were nimble now are stiff and won't obey. My dancing days are over, my pleasures they have flown. Oh, goodness, not for gracious love, but you miss me when I'm gone. Oh, when I'm gone, you'll miss me. When I'm gone, you'll miss me. Your tongue-tied hearts will miss me when I'm gone. When I'm gone, when I'm gone, you'll miss me. When I'm gone, you'll miss me. Some kind hearts will miss me when I'm gone. What will you do without me, love, when winter time comes on? Who'll throw their arms about you, love, as I have often done? Who'll hug you, caress you, and when I above have flown? Oh, you know where to find me, love, but you miss me when I'm gone. Oh, when I'm gone, you'll miss me when I'm gone. Some kind hearts will miss me when I'm gone. When I'm gone, when I'm gone, you'll miss me when I'm gone. Some kind hearts will miss me when I'm gone. Who'll tend the little garden, who'll nurse the budding flower, who'll fence the little yard in where we sat for many an hour. Our children, they're all married, and from us they have gone. And when I'm dead and buried, love, you'll miss me when I'm gone. Oh, when I'm gone, you'll miss me when I'm gone. Some kind hearts will miss me when I'm gone. When I'm gone, you'll miss me. When I'm gone, you'll miss me. Some kind hearts will miss me when I'm gone. Let's do it, Al. Oh, when I'm gone, you'll miss me when I'm gone. Some kind hearts will miss me when I'm gone. When I'm gone, when I'm gone, you'll miss me. When I'm gone, you'll miss me. Some kind hearts will miss me when I'm gone. Oh, that felt good. I finally got that one out. That was nice singing, too.
I got a tune here on my list and I've forgotten how it goes. It's called Ship in the Clouds.
Oh, let me help you with that.
Oh, that's great.
I always wanted to do this. Let's see.
We've never played this before.
Indeed.
No?
No, not here.
It was written just last week by a friend of mine. This very old tune.
I don't need it.
I believe this is D.
Yep. Okay.
Start to play it and I'll find it right away. You don't remember there was a composer, and he was laboring very, very hard for many, many years and earning almost nothing. And he was a sad man, but we don't know that this is really the story of Stephen Foster. We can interpret what we've heard about Stephen Foster, but then the truth might be that he had a loving mother who was supporting him. But actually, when he got to the point where he was down to his last few pennies, he'd write a new song and dash over his publisher's office and give him a $5 bill. And that's the way he accumulated his enormous reservoir. And one of the tunes, they're mostly sad tune, is called Hard Times Come Again No More. You see, in his life he faced hardships, and his music was a way of absorbing the hardships and being able to face them. Let us pause in life's pleasure and count its many tears. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. I think I got the wrong key. 'Tis the song, 'tis the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. When we come to the chorus, you sing that again. While we seek mirth and beauty, and music light and gay, there are frail forms fainting at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks will say, oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, 'tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. We'll sing the first verse again. Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all bear sorrows with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis a song, 'tis a song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Stephen Foster.
Well, for this tune, I do need that fifth string, so it's bad. This is a Spanish fandango. Spanish fandangos are very popular with guitarists and banjo players. And everybody had their own version back in around the turn of the century, into the 30s. And I'd never heard a Spanish fandango I didn't love. This one comes actually from the tablature of John Burke, who wrote a great book on clawhammer, mostly clawhammer, but some finger styles too. Now lives in near Everett, Washington. So this is, actually most of these fandangos have a little more pep to it, but I found I really liked this, the way it has a kind of music box effect in this tuning, so I'll just give you what I do.
Not sure how the Spanish fandango ever got into the Appalachian Hills, but it did. But I'm sure it's genuine, and I love the sort of easy way you played it, Ken. You know, you got the emotion started to flow, and then you took advantage of that. Then you built up a little more emotion, and that's the way it is with us. Well, I've got a little story to tell you. It refers to language. You know what a hoedown is? What do you feel as a hoedown? Anybody tell me?
Country dance. Country dance or barn dance.
Well, when you say country dance and barn dance, it's exactly what it evolved into. But why did they call it a hoedown of all things? Why?
Put your hoe down before you...
The hoedowns usually occurred on Saturday evenings when everyone had had a hard week and so forth. And the farmers, of course, put their hoes down, their hoe down, and that's why they call it a dance, a hoedown.
Firemen do that too.
When you say those things, you don't realize how they develop. You just do that term. Oh, I'm going to a hoedown now. You know, it's that kind of thing.
No.
Some says, what's a hoedown?
I think we have it.
Well, I don't really know, but let's see what else is on our list here.
A whole bunch of keys.
Oh, let me help you do that. No? My guide.
Here to help.
Every little piece of
Not
paper.
very much.
Don't I collect a lot of little scraps of paper in my life? I use them for bookmarks, then they fall on the floor, then I think they belong in the wastebasket, so I put them in the wastebasket. Then I'm looking for them. I say, what happened? I look through the books, it's not there. I put it there, and then I think, oh, it's in the wastebasket. And then I just emptied the wastebasket. Oh, so I lost that. Believe it or not.
I want to know how many wastebaskets you have.
I'm just warming up.
Probably once a day.
Whole bunch of keys. Unless they're a real southern tune. that a joy to hear those old songs? And the nice thing about it is that you can whistle them later on. They're easy tunes that are picked up, even if it's done in one of those rare minor keys. Modal key. Modals are of many different varieties. They're neither minor nor major. Now this tune also. Play this along.
We actually have more time than we expected this time. So we don't know what to do.
Oh, I do. Deacon Foster.
Allan?
I think we ought to have hear another here too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I think we ought to. Like that one I said I heard you play it. So.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Another nice cowboy song to do?
Cowboy song from the Appalachians.
You're really waiting to hear a cowboy song? Come on.
They do raise cows there, but it's kind of rough on the cowboys. Okay, here's a tune that Allan kind of keeps requesting that I play year after year, and if I didn't put the moratorium on it, I'd play it year after year. But I haven't played it in a while, so.
Too bad. But we're going to hear it now, so that makes up for everything.
It's called Betsy Likens. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one, isn't it? Isn't that the one?
Yeah.
Like the things that grow on trees?
Yeah. I'm gonna listen to it, and then I'm gonna play it right here.
Well, I'm playing it without the capo, so I'm not going to be in any rain. I'm going to be in
Oh, all right.
anyway. This is where I like it on the banjo. Now.
Well, the list says Ducks on the Mill Pond. See, might as well play that. This is a tune that almost every fiddler knows, whether they like, whether they're exclusively Southern style fiddler or not. And there are quite a few fiddlers nowadays, not necessarily the old timers. You know, it's quite a few young fiddlers are fascinated with the sound. It seems to I'd say to portray the struggle of the Southern farmers who tried hard when they first came across to till the soil and get some kind of a crop. And if they had livestock, you know, they'd just nibble at whatever grass. There wasn't really any pasture at that time. And just to dig in the mountain soil was trouble. They broke their back. They had, but they always found some time and occasion to have fun, and that's what the music is also about. That's why the words are sometimes thoroughly absurd.
That day she came to check upon me and found the book in my bag. She flew into a rage and started telling me off and hitting me. I became really scared. I was so frightened I wanted to cry. But I felt guilty about reading the book, so I didn't tell anybody at home what happened. But 2 weeks later, the head told me to go to her office in Section B of the school. I was scared. I didn't want to go. My friends didn't want me to leave. But the head kept shouting at me, insisting that I went. When I got back to the classroom, I couldn't take in any of the lessons. I just kept on crying and crying.
Buddha Lakshmi's brother was furious when he heard her story, and he set off for the school immediately. But the head told him that Buddha's telling off had only been a minor incident, and she would be severely punished if she didn't obey school regulations. A heated argument followed, in which Buddha's brother said he'd rather his sister left and went to another school. Despite the argument, Buddha continued to attend the school. But the staff subjected her to constant harassment and ridicule for daring to complain about her treatment to her family. In the end, it all proved too much for the little girl, and she and her little brother were taken away and enrolled in another school. One man who's spearheading a campaign to end the violence endemic in Nepalese schools is Devendra Ale. Devendra used to be a teacher himself in this school in Kathmandu. Today, he's a human rights activist working with CVICT, the Center for Victims of Torture. He spends much of his time training teachers to reduce the violence against children in schools.
Before I came to Kathmandu, I taught for 6 years at a school in the village of Pakri Hawa in Bhairahawa. There is one incident from that time I'll never forget. I was very particular about enforcing the school's rules on pupils' behavior, and I often used to beat them to restore discipline. Once I slapped a student so hard that I damaged his eye. He told his father about the incident at home that evening, and his father came to school to confront me with it the next day. He was very angry and he was strong. I told him I had slapped his son to discipline him, and it was for his own growth. But I said I was sorry, I had damaged his eyes. The man cooled down after I apologized. But then he told me I could punish his child again if I felt I needed to. After 6 years there, I left for Kathmandu to look for a better position. I got a job teaching in the Bhanubhakta Secondary School, and I continued to be tough on my pupils. I punished them for not doing their homework, for misbehaving, for disobedience, for making too much noise, or for fighting with their friends. And my punishment was severe. Sometimes I caned them, I slapped them, I pulled their hair. My students were afraid of me. They were terrorized. Just getting sight of me was enough to get them into the classroom and sitting still. They were so terrified. I still remember telling my class they would get 5 strokes of the cane for every mistake they made. They were so frightened. They would stay in the classroom during their free time or at lunch to complete tasks I had set them. This used to make me very proud. I was happy, thinking my pupils were disciplined and obedient. The school's management committee were happy with my work, and so were the parents. Some of the parents even asked me to help them discipline their children when they were behaving badly at home.
Devendra was far from alone in Nepal in not understanding the sheer magnitude of the damage he inflicted on the children in his care. For while Sita Katra and Buddha Lakshmi's cases were widely covered in the Nepalese media, most people in Nepal still believe that regular beatings at home and in school are the only way to instill discipline in children. There's little research on the psychological effects of corporal punishment, and students, parents and schools prefer to keep silent and maintain the status quo on the issue. Dr. Nirakar Manshrestha is a leading Nepalese psychologist. In his clinic in Kathmandu, he sometimes sees children who are the victims of severe corporal punishment inflicted at schools.
I get to see very few cases of children who've been beaten or bullied at school. But I do get to see cases of children with symptoms that are related to corporal punishment. There are several reasons why I don't get to see more cases of severely damaged children. First, children don't want to tell their parents when they've been punished at school. They think if they complain, they'll be punished again. Secondly, even if children do tell their parents, the parents think it's okay. The general public in Nepal think you have to punish children to instill discipline. They think that children won't pay attention if they're not frightened of their teachers. This is especially true in rural areas. So parents don't take much notice even when their children do complain about being beaten.
Suprabhat Bandari is chairman of the Parents Association, representing parents' interests in campaigning for their children's welfare. The association has had an uphill struggle trying to carry out any substantial research on the effects of corporal punishment. Cases of violence against school children are underreported.
I've been chairman of the Parents Association for the last 2 years, but we only get detailed reports on a very few cases. There is a big disparity between the number of incidents reported and the number that actually take place. And by far the majority of the reports we do get are either anonymous or the parents don't want their identity publicized. They tell us how their children, their sons and daughters are being ill-treated at school. They ask us to do something about it, but they don't want their names mentioned. We come across a lot of frightened people. We had reports of cases where children have been made to carry shoes or been forced to eat paper, and we do get some complaints. In one school, there were 8 computers for 40 students. The students were shown the monitor and asked what it was called. When they couldn't answer, some 30 to 35 children were whipped around the ankles. I read a newspaper report of a case in Chitwan where a girl student was forced to sit inside a drum full of cold water as punishment for not being able to answer the teacher's question. The child, only 5 or 6 years old, a little girl, forced to sit in a drum full of water. She told her mother what had happened and said she didn't want to go to school anymore. I won't go again, she said. They put me in a drum filled with water. I didn't meet the child myself, but I heard later that a local hospital referred her to Kathmandu for treatment. She was running a fever and kept insisting she didn't want to go to school.
Over the last 10 years, there's been a growing awareness of children's rights to be free from all forms of torture and violence, and the damage that violent behavior inflicts on their later growth and development. So why do beatings and corporal punishment continue to thrive in Nepal? Devendra Ale believes that violence breeds more violence.
I read about the ban on corporal punishment in other countries from books and magazine articles. They had a profound effect on me. They changed the way I thought about punishing children. I realized that I had learned the habit of beating my students from my own teachers. My teachers used to pinch me in the stomach and on my hands and beat my legs. I realized I was doing the same thing to my students. One of my students who was subjected to my regime of 5 strokes of the cane for each mistake is now a teacher himself. The daughter of one of my relatives is in his class. She told me that he now puts his students through the same kinds of punishment that I did. It shows that violent behavior is infectious. Each generation passes it onto the next.
Dhruvaman Shrestha is a lawyer who practices in Kathmandu. He represented Sita Katwa in her case against Greenwood High School and helped get her daughter out of school. The court was quick to issue an order to get Sita's daughter released from the school, but Dhruva is still not entirely happy with the way the case was handled.
When I look back on the case, I feel the court should have gone further than just issuing an order for the child's release. But maybe they didn't understand the need. They could, for instance, have instructed the agencies, department, the ministry to take action against the school. That's what I was hoping for. The child had to be released, and she was released. But if the court had given the proper directions too, it would have helped stop incidents like this occurring again.
On one hand, violence continues to thrive because it's being passed on from generation to generation. On the other, there's a general complacency in the legal system itself, which is doing little to deter violence against children. Dr. Bhagendra Sharma is the director of CVICT. He set up the organization 10 years ago to work for the welfare of torture victims.
Our society is riddled with violence. It has to be tackled at its roots. It's hard to prevent violence at every level of society, but we can make a start with the schools. Even if we can only stop one teacher ill-treating one child, we can begin to make a dent in the culture of violence that prevails in Nepal. Our own campaign staff have received training from local and international experts, and we've started to train teachers. Our main concern was that students should only be disciplined in a dignified manner. They mustn't be humiliated. Beatings or other means of humiliation don't help discipline. Students need to be treated with respect, and that was the goal of our pilot projects.
But there's a long way to go before teachers in Nepal accept this philosophy. Hiralai Shrestha is a teacher in a local Kathmandu school. He firmly believes that students need discipline.
I did social studies in Raktakali school. I think students have to be punished to keep them on track. They need to be punished, first of all, so that they complete the tasks they have been set, And secondly, they need to be punished to maintain discipline in school. Suppose they don't finish their homework. They can be caned a few times and made to stand on the bench, punishment. That's just a physical punishment. It's not mental punishment. If a student becomes very naughty, then he will have to be made to apologize in front of his friends in class.
I teach maths. I often carry a ruler with me because it's not possible to use your hands all the time to beat students. So I use a ruler. I give the children's hand a few strokes whenever it's needed. I don't use a duster. I'm afraid that would hurt too much. Students who are good at their work are fine on their own. They're also well behaved, but the parents of problem children actually come to see us and ask us to beat their children to punish them. Parents complain the children are watching television all the time or are only interested in playing. Even though the school tells us not to beat children, we have to beat the naughty ones.
But whatever the teacher's justifications for beating children, it's hard to listen to the children's stories and still think the teachers have got it right.
First, the teacher warns you. Then, if you make a mistake a second time, he beats you. He makes you stand on the bench in front of the class. I feel very bad. I feel embarrassed. But I also feel angry. I feel like jumping on a teacher, but I can't.
Uden Shrestha was in the 7th class at Mangal Secondary School.
Why did you leave school?
Because they beat me.
Your father wanted to send you back to the same school. Why wouldn't you go?
Because they beat there.
Beating children leaves scars. According to Dr. Nirakaman Shrestha, severe beatings can cause lack of concentration and mental disturbances, as well as other emotional and physical disorders.
If a teacher bangs a student's head against the wall, it can cause physical damage to the brain. It can also send the child into a state of shock.
Mental पनि बच्चालाई चाहिँ एउटा चाहिँ टक परेको हुन सक्छ हैन त्यसले गर्दाखेरि बच्चामा एउटा डर हुने एउटा त्रास पैदा हुने
It will terrify the child and make him lose his power to concentrate.
उसको कन्सन्ट्रेसनमा पढ्दाखेरि कन्सन्ट्रेसनमा चाहिँ घाँस आएको हुन सक्छ त्यसले गर्दाखेरि पनि बच्चाको एउटा के भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ परफर्मेन्स
And this will have an effect on the child's whole performance. If a child has been subjected to frequent punishments of this type, and his parents have failed to do anything about them, the child may suffer emotional disturbances and sleep disorders.
In Nepal today, violence permeates every aspect of life, from school and home through to the police, the army, and even public office. There is an urgent need to change the culture. Groups like CVICT can make a difference, but for major changes to take place, the government has to act to stem everyday random violence. And as Devendra Ale believes, introduce new measures to ensure discipline and dignity go hand in hand.
We haven't been as cruel as the police force, but when I look at the young, innocent faces of students today, I know we have tortured them. We have ruined so many students' lives, and I feel that we may have damaged the next generation. I have seen many pupils who are too scared even to speak to their elders. The punishment the teachers have inflicted has instilled them with fear for the rest of their lives. They don't have the openness even to talk to their elders.
They have become introverted, closed. People like that cannot progress or develop freely. All individuals should be extroverted. But to be an extrovert, a child must grow up safe and free in a loving environment.
We in Porto Alegre are now concerned, all of us, in trying to find ways to save the planet, to bring about social justice. You in Davos are trying to find ways to continue to maintain corporate hegemony all over the world and to think up ways of further corporate plunder.
I'm trying to have a dialogue with you, but you don't seem to want to have any dialogue with me. So we might as well then stop talking.
It's like the reality show Temptation Island. So is TV too hot? Joining us now in Washington, Lori Cole, Executive Director of the Conservative Eagle Forum in Los Angeles, actress and writer Martina Holliday. Good to have you both with us.
Great, thanks.
Lori,
Good to be here.
I'm guessing because we had the word conservative in there in your introduction, are you going to, I'm just wondering, are you going to claim that the increasing sex on television is bad and has somehow had an impact on teens' behavior? Are you going to make that case?
I think that we can definitely make that case. First of all, you have this study that was done by the Kaiser Foundation, not known as a conservative bastion, and they start with the assumption that their content on TV does influence behavior, and that's a significant step forward.
Well, when it talks about sexual content, though, you know that sexual content, by the study's own admission, can be anything from flirting to sexual intercourse, and that's a wide range, isn't it? And so it doesn't really break it down. People flirting means nothing.
It does break it down into the people. It is broken down in the study quite a bit if you look at the percentages.
I did,
well,
and the percentages weren't that much, as a matter of fact.
Yes, but if you look at what you even opened with, of the safe sex message going up in the programming, that's not good enough. What happened to respect and responsibility instead of just risk and responsibility? Where's the marriage message?
Laurie, did you ever watch a television show and as a result of that television show change your behavior? Did that ever happen to you as a kid?
Allan, if TV doesn't have an impact on behavior, why do advertisers
Well, answer me, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever changed, was your behavior ever affected by a television show? Yes or no?
Allan, I discern what I watch on TV,
I see, but other people,
I don't feed my mind with the disgusting things on the program.
You know, it's interesting, Martina, that the people who are so concerned about sex on TV, they never get affected by it. It's all the other people who are less intelligent we have to watch out for, because they...
we may someday discover here.
Up next, near the Great Pyramids, explorers reveal a secret kept for nearly 5,000 years. Just ahead. Get up close.
So anywhere you want. That's the dream.
Go to...
Might increase our allies' support for Bush's plan for a national missile defense system. The president will also review the salaries of U.S. fighting forces. Federal 5.3. Last month's powerful quake killed at least 30,000 people and left more than 1 million homeless. Finally, for those of you searching for the perfect wave, the American technology company Wavelock has come up with a way to create a 13-foot wave in your backyard or just about anywhere. It opened a world tour of its mobile surf tank in Sydney, Australia. Wavelock plans to open an amusement park in San Diego later this year. And those are the latest headlines. The next update is at the bottom of the hour. But now back to John Scott, who's joined by Bridget Quinn. Good morning, Bridget.
Bridget wants one of those things.
It's a good play toy.
She wants a wave tank in her backyard, right?
I want to hang 10.
Yeah.
Cowabunga.
That way you don't have to go to the beach over on Long Island.
That's right. My little one would love it, that's for sure.
I wanted to see a wide shot of that thing. That was cool.
That was pretty neat. It almost looked fake, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it does. Yeah. And I mean, I've seen the fake ski machines. You can see how that would work. But surfing?
I like it.
I like it, too. All right, shall we move on to the news?
Why don't we?
I guess. It's Friday, you know, cut us a break. President Clinton has been out of office for several weeks, but he's still very much in...
Coming up, more of the best music from around the world as Worldlink TV's non-stop 2-hour music block continues.
Your papa is too tired to play. You have to let him go away.
Rescue workers struggled to save thousands believed to be trapped beneath the rubble. Most people who lost their near and dear ones were inconsolable.
अभी दो अंदर है एक मेरा लड़का एक दूसरे के भाई की औरत है करीबन 30 सेकंड का ये धरतीकंप हुआ और उसमें सब लोग अभी नीचे आ रहे थे सभी सीढ़ी में ही थे सब लोग पूरा प्लेट उसके ऊपर ही गिर पड़ा इसमें से 3-4 आदमी को हमने बचा लिया है काफी आदमी अंदर 60-70 आदमी अंदर फंसे हुए हैं.
The center has sent relief supplies and medical teams to Bhuj, Ahmedabad and other badly hit regions in the state. The army and paramilitary forces have joined rescue operations. Special trains carrying relief materials are already on their way to Gujarat. Meanwhile, Gujarat has experienced at least 47 aftershocks of varying intensities ranging from 3.5 to 5 on the Richter scale, and more are expected in the next few days. These aftershocks have hampered rescue operations. Power and communication links are severely down and efforts are being made to restore them. Several army and makeshift hospitals are crammed with injured people, many of whom have suffered multiple fractures or been simply rendered immobile. The quake, which is the second worst in 50 years in the country, has made thousands homeless. Those affected are spending their nights out in the cold as they're trying to figure out the misery which has overtaken them, shattering them and jolting them out of the blue.
11 days and the death toll of the Gujarat earthquake reveals a rising graph. State officials have estimated that at least 30,000 people died in the quake. Last week, India's Defence Minister George Fernandes had said the toll could be in 6 figures. Today, while visiting Bhuj, he said it's difficult to arrive at a conclusion as the magnitude of the devastation is huge.
I don't think anyone will ever be able to have the final figures because from day one, that is on the 26th of January itself, as the casualties became known in the villages, people started cremating the bodies. Right. And no one may have reached that village.
Relief is pouring into Bhuj city, but the people in the fringes and the interiors are still waiting for their share of relief materials. Tents, blankets, food and medicines have still not reached them. Most of them grab the food and water they get and then shiver all night and day in the open.
किसी को चीनी मिली अगर दूध नहीं मिला है तो वो उसके लिए वेट करता रहेगा तो छोटी-छोटी चीजें हैं जो सब कुछ चाहिए एक उसमें किसी के यूटेंसिल्स जो है डिस्ट्रॉय हो गए हैं बर्तन नहीं है हमने उसको चावल भी दे दिया आटा भी दे दिया भगोना नहीं है हमारे पास तो वो चावल पकाएगा कैसे वो बैठा रहेगा तब तक इसके लिए वेट करेगा तो ये गैप है
The Gujarat government has set up a 5-tiered management system to monitor distribution of relief. The union government has also asked the state to set up information booths on a large scale to help victims. It is 11 days now, and yet the system is disorganized and there is a scramble for food.
This is WorldLink TV.
In a push for his missile defense plan, Bush said the country needs to be protected from high-tech terrorists. The president will visit a number of military bases next week with an eye on evaluating America's battle readiness. Our next update is coming up at the top of the hour, but now stay tuned for Cavuto on Business with our money man, Neil Cavuto, taking a look at the movers and shakers in the world of business. That's straight ahead on Fox News Channel. I'm Patty Ann Brown.
So none of these other business credits and extra goodies that some in the business community have asked for, those are something you would not consider?
Those are things that the president did not run on, and in fact, I think they would slow down the tax relief that the American people want.
Would that be a deal breaker? Would that be a deal breaker to you if they still tried to ram that through?
Well, I know not enough not to answer a hypothetical question.
But we asked them anyway. Well, could the tax cut be too much of a good thing? Well, don't look now, but George W. Bush is about to find out. Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Neil Capito. Well, I got to be honest, I welcome a tax cut. I've urged one on this show, but here's what worries me. The tax cut George W. Bush wants might not be the tax cut that he gets. The problem isn't that it will shrink. The problem is that it will grow and grow and grow. This congressman wants more tax breaks for pension plans, another investment incentives for big business, still another tax credits for Aborigines that settle in the U.S. All right, the last one I made up, but you get my point. If things get out of hand, could the economy get out of funk? Let's ask our all-star panel. We begin with my good friend Jessica Bibliowicz, the president of National Financial Partners. Next, we've got Bob Olstein here. Bob is the president of Olstein Funds. He's been getting some great press lately. Richard Breeden is back. Richard, the chairman and the CEO of Equivest Financial and the former chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. And last but not least, Robert Hormats, the vice chairman of Goldman Sachs. My colleague Karen Gibbs is off today. Jessica, I began with you, so let me begin with you on this theme that maybe Wall Street might be worried about getting too much of a good thing.
Well, I think one of the issues that you have during the debate period is uncertainty, and the market certainly has enough uncertainty in it right now. But I think that Bush, interestingly enough, is coming right up the middle, and I think it's possible at the end of the day you will see something, if he sticks with his guns and remains consistent, is somewhat like what he's proposing right now. Maybe what you'll see is a compromise on the estate tax side or something that people can get comfortable with. But it's possible that you'll actually see something that looks very similar to the plan and that gets people feeling that it'll stimulate the economy. There's a lot of wind behind the sail. I think it's helpful. I think it's sort of long-term in nature, so you wonder whether people will sandbag until the full cuts are in.
I would like to see the present form that Mr. Bush is proposing, but then you have guys like Tom Daschle who says you're going to give a Lexus to the rich and a muffler to the poor, and I think
you're getting a Lexus.
Well, I'm not. I have no confidence. But basically, there's a lot of excessive debt out there in households, and I think his proposal is right on, but I'm concerned.
His proposal being Bush's.
Mr. Bush's proposal is right on because the rich will spend it and employ some of the middle class, etc. And if they start the old welfare state, I'm not sure that it's going to help.
But I think the worry is, and Richard, maybe you can help me with this, is that it gets to be too much of a good thing. That the Bush folks were clearly worried about that. Talked to Lindsay during the week, who was saying, you know, 1.6 trillion, no more, no less.
Well, there's always a risk with Congress that you get a Christmas tree going.
But ironically, from his Republican colleagues.
From the right.
Well, sure, because they're the only people who, in the last 8 years, the long night of systematic excessive taxation in this country, they're the only people calling for cuts. So, you know, sure, the right of the Republican Party is going to push for bigger cuts, and as you said,
would that worry you if they got them? If this became
I think we're a long way from having too many tax cuts. I mean, we have got a $5.6 trillion over-taxation problem in this country, and so let's give some of it back to people. But I think the president has been very clear that it shouldn't get out of hand, and it should be somewhere around the magnitude that he said, because we've got other things to do.
I don't know. I think it is out of hand. I think it would be like me in a bake shop. Just guard the shelf.
Go buy that Lexus.
Yeah, I just think it is. I think it is out of hand. That's what we're.
Well, I think you have to worry about going back to 1981, where you did have a feeding frenzy, and now you have a big surplus, and a lot of people want a piece of the action: tax cuts or more spending. This is a big worry. The other part of it is it going to be a real stimulus program when we need it? Which is now, most of it, don't forget, is back-end loaded. And that, to me, is harmful, in part because we may not need it when we really get the big stimulus in the out years.
Yeah, isn't the idea to make it retroactive January 1?
But that's part of it.
But the big cut happens in 2006.
That's a small part of it, but the big part is still going to be back-end loaded.
But you would see some relief now, right?
You would see a little bit of stimulus now, yes. But
so here's the thing. If you're looking forward to June and July, whenever this thing is supposed to go through, everyone's going to be looking forward to a bigger paycheck at that time. Do people plan ahead of that? Do they just stop spending now?
I'm all for short-term stimulus because I think we're going to need it. We've got a weak economy. I don't think we're good enough at projecting the long-term to know what the surplus is going to be in the 7th and 8th
You're going to think about that with the refinancing, with interest rates coming down. Are there enough things happening here that stimulate the consumer again?
Well, we're teetering on a recession. We need a tax cut. We need it now, and I think we'll be okay. I'm not worried about too much.
For 8 years, we've been loading up with good fiscal discipline and very heavy on the tax front. If we cut now and cut sooner, as the president suggested, to phase it in a little faster, there's plenty of room to tinker with the things that don't phase in.
See, but
for
I
6
worry,
or 7
Richard,
years.
about this fiscal conservatism. I mean, I've not seen a lot of it out of either
Neil, is you
party.
worry about inflation? Is that what you're worried about?
No, my
That
worry is that they show very little resolve with this money.
And once you do get a tax cut, then it's going to be much harder when we don't need it in the out years to get rid of it.
But the alternative to that is if you leave the money with Congress, then they spend it. And then you embed it in the spending.
But we're still not sure we're going to
projections, so.
retire the debt as quickly as a lot of people think. Projections have been wildly off if you go 5, 6, 7 years down the road.
I also think there's an assumption that retiring the debt rapidly is a good thing.
And even Greenspan called that.
And I think we need to have a little thought about, yes, retire the debt, but over what
we
pace?
should do it gradually. We're going to need to borrow a lot in the next decade for Social Security and Medicare. We want to be in a good fiscal position going into that.
Okay, and back to this issue that Bob was just raising about whether we are on the brink of a recession. Are we over dooming and glooming things? I think we are. My panelists might think I'm nuts, but we're going to explore that after this.
Money's in the air. Wireless companies keep investors talking. But it takes more than hot technology to get Janus excited. Janus bought into one company after learning their business from the inside out. Even projected how fast they could grow by counting their antennas and meeting their technicians on rooftops to see how fast they could install more. Now every signal says money to Janus. Get there. Janus Mutual Funds.
What volume for 135?
Enron Online will change the markets for many, many commodities. It is creating an open, transparent marketplace that replaces the dark, blind system that existed. It is real simple. You turn on your computer, and it's right there. And if you want
Spacewalkers worked today on connecting a new lab to the space station Alpha. They were attaching an ammonia coolant line when the line sprung a leak, sending a spray of ammonia into space. NASA says there's no safety risk since the chemicals will evaporate once the orbiting complex swings back into daylight. And 60s pop star Ronnie Spector is looking for the New York policeman she says roughed her up. The former Ronette says several plainclothes officers.
The rink, around since 1955 and only closing its doors for good a week ago. Investigators still looking for the cause of that thing. Texas, a tractor trailer running out of headroom when the driver takes it right under the expressway. The load wedged underneath the overpass, blocking traffic for about an hour. No one hurt here, and eventually they do get the truck out. Michigan, a woman in Detroit most unhappy when she finds out she's appearing on a website called, get this, buttwatcher.com.
That precludes the submarine from being able to open her hatches out there and take people on board safely. But USS Greenville was fully involved in the rescue effort, both immediately after the accident and throughout the night.
President Bush and Secretary of State Colin Powell have offered their condolences to Japan. The Navy promises a full investigation. And the Grammys may just produce the oddest couple of them all when Slim Shady hooks up with the Rocket Man, rapper.
We went to the edges, we took the Mesotech and looked all around. We cut through this way and that way. We drove Zhenya nuts. Driving, we say, do this track light, do this track light, do this track light. He goes, no debris. We say, we must check. We go from the sub out along this bearing. We go out this way.
So we finally went to the conning tower. Because, and it was a pleasure, even though we were there only for a minute, to see I-52 with my own eyes.
Right.
To see the flag that Paul had put up, it was a wonderful thing.
Jim Philippone has ended up with an IOU from Paul Tidwell for $2 million, and what he has always said he wanted most.
It was a great adventure.
I met some great people. I saw some great work being done. It was a whole new field for me. I've been sitting in a law office all my life, and I never saw anything like this. It's an adventure that I will remember the rest of my life. I will try somehow to get pictures and film from all the people that have done things here, and I'll probably mount a wall in my den at home and call it the I-52 wall and dwell on that for the rest of my old age.
I don't want any part of I-52 unsolved. I really want to get in there and record the insides and to do a recovery. And there's more personal effects I'd like to recover and return to the families as well. And I'll start preparing for it probably within the next month or so.
Awash in debt and disappointment, Paul Tidwell does what he always does. He moves on. February 1999. In Kure, home of the Japanese submarine forces then and now, the Tidwells visit a monument to the lost submariners of World War II. Tidwell presents the most personal offering he can, mute evidence of the 112 sailors and passengers on I-52. More than the gold, more than the excitement, more than anything else, Paul Tidwell has said this is what the search for the submarine I-52 is all about. And on this day and in this place, that certainly is the truth.
How wild can life get? Creatures that terrify, instincts that mystify, action that electrifies. Living Wild on the National Geographic Channel, where the road ends and the adventure begins. On Living Wild, weeknights at 8 on the National Geographic Channel. Always one.
Frustrated, the Imperial Navy turned to its decisive blow, a multi-fleet thrust into the Central Pacific at Midway Island, with the major goal of luring Nimitz's pitiful navy out to destruction.
The Yorktown had been injured down there in Coral Sea. They put her in dry dock. The verdict was it would take a month at least of high-powered work to get her ready. Nimitz himself went down in the dry dock and he said, patch her up and get her out of here immediately, and they did in 3 days.
Again, he chose commanders infallibly. Slim, quiet Admiral Raymond Spruance would bring coolness and calculation into springing a carrier ambush.
So here, Nimitz was with 3 carriers, half a dozen cruisers, and maybe 50 destroyers, against a fleet of several hundred ships, 6 carriers, half a dozen battleships.
Nimitz was gambling desperately on his 2 task force commanders, Spruance and Fletcher, finding the Japanese fleet, commanded by Admiral Yamamoto, before they found him.
Nimitz's big bet paid off. On the morning of June 4th, 1942, American dive bombers caught enemy carriers with their planes on flight decks strewn with bombs and gasoline, and turned the ships into exploding, sinking torches. Nimitz lost the carrier Yorktown and many planes, but the Japanese loss of 4 carriers was catastrophic and unrecoverable. Just 6 months after Pearl Harbor, Nimitz had the Japanese tide running out. He knew that even with their naval thrusts defeated at the Coral Sea and Midway, the Japanese had the power to cut him off from Australia. Nimitz's intelligence units showed the enemy landing on the island of Guadalcanal in the Solomons Chain, northeast of the Australian coast. They were building an airbase to smother the supply line from America. He had to hit the Solomons. The landing on Guadalcanal came on August 7, 1942, with the Marines seizing the vital airfield quickly. But disaster arrived. At Savo Island off Guadalcanal, the Japanese fleet surprised the heart of the Allied force protecting Nimitz's carriers and sank 4 heavy cruisers. The now naked carriers and transports withdrew, leaving the desperate Marines to hold on with what they had. Nimitz's fleet and his campaign hung by a shoestring. Nimitz decided that he wanted a man who could inspire others to feats beyond their known capabilities, and that was a job for William F. Halsey, Jr.
America's 5-star heroes will continue in a moment.
Hi, Billy Mays here for OxyClean, the stain specialist. Powered by the air you breathe, activated by the water that you and I drink. It's Mother Nature approved, then it's safe on your colored fabrics. Use it on carpets. OxyClean seeks out organic stains, pet stains, food stains. They get down into the matting, into the padding. It even takes red wine and grape juice out of white carpeting. It cleans, it brightens, it eliminates odors all at the same time. Don't just get it clean, get it OxyClean. Make a paste, make it 10 times as powerful. The longer you let it set, the easier it is. It'll whiten your grout and get rid of your toughest stains. Sometimes soaking is the solution. If you use bleach, you ruin your clothes. OxyClean won't hurt the material, even lace. It has the power of bleach without the damaging side effects of chlorine. When your laundry detergent just isn't enough, supercharge it with OxyClean. 1 scoop in every load of laundry, it'll make your whites whiter. It'll make your brights brighter. As a stain remover, it's the best. Grass stains, clay stains. Long live your laundry. OxyClean, the stain specialist. We've sold millions of our 2.5-pound tubs for $40. But if you call now, we'll cut the price in half, only $19.95. You'll also receive a squirt bottle and a super chamois absolutely free. If you call during this show, you'll receive a bottle of our world-famous Orange Clean, made with pure orange oil. It cuts through the grease and the grime, whether it's baked on in the oven or caked on the stove. You get all this for just $19.95, but call in the next 20 minutes and we'll supersize your OxyClean from a 2.5-pound tub to a whopping 6-pound bucket, nearly triple the amount. But you gotta call now. Here's how to order.
Call to order your 6-pound bucket of OxyClean for only $19.95. Call now and we'll include the super chamois, squirt bottle, and Orange Clean absolutely free. Call 1-800-697-5115. Call now.
Attention investors, do you have an opinion? Now you have the opportunity to invest in rising or falling markets using Dow Jones futures and options contracts. Take the guesswork out of picking individual stocks. Discover the power of leverage where contracts equal 10 times the current Dow Jones Industrial Average. Futures and options investing involves substantial risk of loss and are not suitable for everyone. Call the number on your screen for a free CD-ROM on options investing. Call the number on your screen to reach Barclay Financial.
There is a vacation place of castles and magic, of wonder and discovery. A place where great adventures really happen and great mists meet the heavens. Ah, but this is not a land far, far away. It is Asheville, North Carolina, and she is telling your story. Call for a free visitor's guide.
We now continue with America's 5-star heroes.
I have been asked many times since I came back if there's such a thing as a good Jap. My answer is yes. One that's been dead for 6 months.
William Frederick Halsey, Jr. seemed a throwback to the Jurassic Age of naval warfare. While in excess of World War II's imperious admirals were thinking deep strategic thoughts in Hawaii and Washington, Halsey was charging across blue water, spoiling to hurl his ships alongside an enemy he unabashedly hated. Halsey was born on October 30th, 1882 in Elizabeth, New Jersey, to Navy Commander William Halsey and the former Ann Masters Brewster. Young Halsey grew into a chunky, athletic boy who played excellently and studied indifferently, as the family moved a half-dozen times before his teens. He entered Annapolis in 1900, a period when the U.S. Navy and the Academy were experiencing a glorious reformation on the heels of the successful war with Spain. A star on one of the worst Academy football teams in its history, he was graduated a tepid 42nd in his class.
When he graduated, the only disappointing part of his commissioning was when the Chief Master-at-Arms of Annapolis came up to him and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Halsey, but you'll never be the naval officer that your father was." And that stuck with Halsey, and for the rest of his life, he wanted to show that he was indeed the naval officer that his father was.
Returning from his world cruise, Bill Halsey married Fanny Grandy on December 1st, 1909 in Norfolk. Lieutenant husband E. Kimmel, who would command the Pacific Fleet during the Pearl Harbor disaster, was a wedding usher. The birth of children, Margaret and William III, were rare bright spots as Halsey's career was eddying aimlessly in flotilla duty at Veracruz and Tampico during troubles with Mexico. By 1932, most of the U.S. Navy had been sent to the Pacific to deal with the growing tensions with Japan, and that would save Halsey's career. Suddenly, a crucial decision. The Saratoga, converted from a battle cruiser to a fast aircraft carrier, needed a skipper. But the job required vigorous aviation training, and at age 51, Halsey found himself at Pensacola, Florida, competing with men half his age, but he made the grade. Commanding carriers, he gleefully absorbed the intricate ballet of the flight deck and carrier handling and tactics. Nine days before Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, Halsey was at sea on the carrier Enterprise, delivering fighter planes to Wake Island, and returned raging to the Holocaust he had missed.
I'm going to leave in Tokyo in about 10 months. If there's anything left of the damn town, we're going to burn that up.
Nimitz saw a desperate need to strike the enemy at once, to unbalance him and to restore morale. When the other admirals hesitated, Halsey stepped forward. On February 1st, 1942, Halsey, commanding a force built around the carriers Enterprise and Yorktown, and supported only by cruisers and destroyers, launched the first U.S. attack on Japanese-held territory. His flyers caught the victory-flushed enemy unaware. American guns and planes beat up multiple targets, including Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands and Macon in the Gilberts. While the score in destroyed and damaged ships and planes was not high, the raid did rattle the Japanese plans and was a roaring public relations success, especially for America's First World War II naval hero, Admiral Bill Halsey. He had a weather-worn face and the features of a bulldog. The press picked it up and started calling him Bull Halsey. When Nimitz asked Halsey whether he was ready to take on the wild raid by Army bombers on Tokyo, the old fighter snapped, "I sure am." After loading the B-25s and their 80 crewmen aboard the carrier Hornet, and once the Tokyo strike force was at sea, Halsey passed the word to the men, "This force is bound for Tokyo." He would later say, "In all my experience in the Navy, I have never heard such a resounding cheer as came up from the ship's company." But when still far out, the task force was spotted. The question was whether to kick the bombers over the side and get out of there, or to launch them toward Tokyo. Halsey launched them. He made the tough decision at the very far edge of the launch range, and a great decision it was. Bull Halsey returned his Japanese goodwill medals attached to bombs. As with his previous strikes, the damage to Japanese dignity and peace of mind was more devastating than anything the munitions wrought. The Navy, taking full note of Halsey's part in the audacious operation, determined to make important use of its newly discovered fighting fool. He would be too far away to make the Coral Sea battle, and would furiously miss the Midway fight as shingles hospitalized him. But he would be ready at Guadalcanal after the Savo Island disaster drove off the Navy and left the hard-pressed Marines stranded ashore. Halsey's new orders read, "You will relieve Vice Admiral Robert L. Gormley of the duties of Commander South Pacific and South Pacific Force." Halsey would say, with an expletive, "This is the hottest potato they ever handed me." On Guadalcanal, an officer recalled the troops getting word of Halsey's arrival. "One minute we were too limp with malaria to crawl out of our foxholes. The next we were running around whooping like kids." In November 1942, raging with frustration over their earlier failed attempts to recapture Guadalcanal's airfield, the Japanese readied an all-out effort to overwhelm the Marine forces. At Truk in the Carolines, Rabaul on New Britain, and in the Shortlands, the Japanese packed their destroyers with combat troops in sobering numbers. Halsey committed every ship he had. The forces he had at hand included only cruisers and destroyers, but he had made a pledge to defend the Marines on Guadalcanal, and that night those cruisers and destroyers faced Japanese battleships at close range. The night became like day in the flaming gunfire. The air filled with the terrible sounds of tearing steel and exploding magazines. The cruiser Atlanta sank. The Juno went down, taking 5 Sullivan brothers with it. Admiral Scott and Callahan were killed. A Japanese battleship was riddled and 2 escorting destroyers sunk. American losses in life had exceeded the enemy's, but Japanese offensive strength was broken.
After the naval battle of Guadalcanal, Halsey was honored by being promoted to full admiral, 4 stars. But he said, "I don't want to accept these, and I want you to send them, deliver them, to the widows of Admiral Scott and Admiral Callaghan, who died so bravely in the night action in the naval battle of Guadalcanal, and say, the valor of your husbands brought this honor to me."
Gradually, U.S. Marines and soldiers overwhelmed the defeated and starving Japanese. By February 1943, the battle for Guadalcanal was over. Halsey would find a kindred, if difficult, fellow 5-star hero in perhaps the only man in the Pacific who hated the enemy as much as he did.
Our look at America's 5-star heroes will continue in a moment.
Look around out there. The world is full of invention. At Exelon, we think it's time for utility companies to catch up. It's time to do not just energy and infrastructure, but ideas. Okay, we'll go first. Exelon, welcome change.
Now, Cornerstone Promotions presents Kenny Rogers, singing 30 of the greatest love songs ever written. Kenny puts his romantic signature on every song. Relive those magical moments that only a song can bring back.
Darling, you
have I told you lately that I love you? Oh, my love, did you ever know that you're my hero? And she believes in me.
Call toll-free for Kenny Rogers. 2 cassettes, $19.98. 2 CDs, $24.98, plus $4.95 shipping. Have your credit card ready and call now.
Tomorrow on the History Channel, enter the shadowy realm of powerful secret societies on history's mysteries. Then step onto the battle line with the enforcers at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Followed by modern marvels with a handy history of garage gadgets. It all begins tomorrow night at 8 on the History Channel.
Delve deeper into the chronicles of military miscalculation with Days of Infamy, the official companion volume to the History Channel series Military Blunders, now available in bookstores everywhere.
There's one night of the year when we're all sports fans, because no matter who you are or what you've done, there's always someone who's done something that is somehow the most amazing thing you ever saw.
Go in. Oh!
And that's why we have the ESPYs. Tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Everyone was certainly impressed with our new Amerlink log home.
Yes, it was a great housewarming party.
In fact, I think the Taylors have decided on a log home of their own.
Oh, great. So what do we do if all our friends build an Amerlink log home?
Build a bigger one?
See how easy it is to own a beautiful Amerlink log home. Order your planning kit featuring our construction video and a full-color plan book of 80 beautiful homes. Just $9.95 plus shipping. Call 1-877-860-5647 today.
Our look at America's five-star heroes now continues.
General Douglas MacArthur packed enough success into his military career to accommodate 10 ordinary heroes. He was the beacon of his brilliant and vengeful drive on Japan as the towering commander of the Southwest Pacific Theater. Blazingly egocentric, he offered his military genius with vainglorious flashes of showmanship and oratory that won him national headlines and few friends.
I said to the people of the Philippines whence I came, I shall return.
Douglas MacArthur probably had the longest and the most profound influence on American military history of any general of the 20th century.
He was born on January 26, 1880, at Fort Dodge, Arkansas, the third of 3 children of Medal of Honor winner Arthur MacArthur and beautiful Mary Pinckney Hardy. Growing up on grimy frontier outposts, he would later write that his first memory was that of a bugle call. Douglas MacArthur entered West Point in 1899 and found both the institution and the career that he had been born to love. In 1903, to no one's surprise, MacArthur not only graduated at the top of his 94 cadet class, but did so with a grade average surpassed by only 2 others in Academy history, one being Robert E. Lee.
This man is a warrior. In 1903, his first posting in the Philippines, he was an engineer then, working on a construction site, when a crew that he was with was jumped by 2 insurgents. MacArthur whipped out his pistol, shot both of them dead immediately.
But finally, there was a war big enough to show what MacArthur could do. He began World War I as a major and quickly made colonel, serving on the general staff. In July 1918, having switched from the engineers to the infantry, Douglas MacArthur became a brigadier general and took brisk command of the Rainbow Division. and that meant at its head, not its rear. He was gassed and almost blinded. He gloried in the bloodiest assignments. When ordered to take strongly held Châtillon in Champagne, he responded theatrically with, "If this brigade does not capture Châtillon, you can publish a casualty list of the entire brigade, with the brigade commander's name at the top." A simple yes, sir, never seemed to do. He was almost sorry when the war ended. With a towering reputation, MacArthur was made superintendent of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He was given the mission of revitalizing and revamping the academy and succeeded brilliantly. Douglas MacArthur married socialite Louise Brooks on Valentine's Day, 1922. The marriage was not made in heaven and would end in divorce after 7 years. In 1930, MacArthur's genius was again recognized when he became the Army's youngest ever Chief of Staff at the age of 50. With the blatantly arming Japanese becoming more and more aggressive on the Asian mainland, and MacArthur's stint as Chief of Staff ending, FDR responded to the Philippines' call for a heavyweight military advisor in 1935 by sending him to build an army and defenses. In 1937, MacArthur married Jean Faircloth, a union that would last all their lives and produce an adored son, Arthur. By 1940, the Japanese had entered into the tripartite pact with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. And by 1941, they were moving into Indochina in naked expansion. Roosevelt quickly brought MacArthur back onto active duty as commander of U.S. Army forces in the Far East. MacArthur's Philippines proved as unready as Pearl Harbor when the Japanese attacked. He was forced to make a fighting retreat into the Bataan Peninsula on Manila Bay.
When he made the quick decision to withdraw to Bataan, there wasn't time to bring all these supplies, food and medicine, back to Bataan, and so the shortage of food and medicine on Bataan was a critical factor in losing the battle.
General Masaharu Homa had been ordered to take the Philippines in 60 days, but for 121 days of slaughter, the defensive ferocity of MacArthur's 80,000 starving men held the Japanese at bay along Bataan's 25-mile length. A bitter ballad went, "We're the battling bastards of Bataan. No mama, no papa, no Uncle Sam." MacArthur's troops had been left to die by a U.S. policy to defend Europe first. With MacArthur as the only general fighting the Japanese steamroller to a standstill, Roosevelt realized that it would be a disaster to home front morale if America's only hero were captured or killed. He would be snatched out of the trap by PT boat and plane. MacArthur made it all the way, 560 miles through to Australia, and America rejoiced. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. His new headquarters answered the phone with, "Hello, this is Bataan."
As soon as he hit the ground, he was asked a question by a reporter what he intended to do, and in a somewhat offhand remark, he said, "Well, I've come through from the Philippines and I shall return." That was picked up immediately worldwide.
On May 6, 1942, the Japanese overwhelmed the last of the Philippine defenders. The 75,000 survivors were herded to prison on an atrocity-filled death march. It roused in MacArthur a raging hatred that would one day hound the Japanese commanders to a noose. Soon MacArthur's scant American forces had joined the hard-fighting Australians in attempting to hold back the Japanese advance while pushing for bases on New Guinea's northern coast. Although August landings in the Solomons diverted some pressure, MacArthur's losses were heavy.
One thing Douglas MacArthur did, as well as any general, is he learned. He starts to realize that he can bypass Japanese garrisons and avoid coming up against their strongest defenses, his trifibious warfare, as he called it, with the air and land and sea forces. He was brilliant in the way that he designed his campaigns to bypass key enemy fortifications to avoid going into the teeth of their main defenses.
While other West Point generals had been trained to see water as an obstacle or a defensive position, MacArthur elected to view it as a highway to bring his forces to the enemy. As his logistical support grew, he leapfrogged ever greater distances across New Guinea's northern coast. At home, his name was appearing on streets, airports, bridges, ballparks, and sandwiches. A MacArthur industry boomed in buttons, plates, pennants, photos, magazines, and books. But always burning at the back of his mind was his humiliation on Bataan, and he growled, "Until we lift our flag from its dust, we stand unredeemed before mankind."
America's five-star heroes will continue in a moment.
I can't wait to hit those links.
Man, I can't wait to hit the trails.
Why am I doing this?
Seasonal allergies can make you feel miserable. Only Once Daily Allegra has fexofenadine for long-lasting, non-drowsy allergy relief, so you can feel more like yourself again. For patients 12 and older, side effects include headache, upper respiratory tract infection, and back pain. Call your doctor now for more information about Allegra and enjoy your world.
Every day, AmeriDebt helps more people with money problems.
My credit card debt was outrageous. Then I called AmeriDebt. They contacted my creditors and got my payments almost cut in half.
AmeriDebt is a non-profit organization that offers free consultations to consumers seeking to eliminate their debt.
Every month I pay our credit card bills, but the balances never seem to get smaller.
AmeriDebt got our interest rates reduced, and now the balances are dropping dramatically.
Join the thousands of people who have turned their financial lives around. Call 1-800-354-3400.
Not far from the breathtaking beaches and thrilling attractions, there exists an entire Florida just waiting to be found. Crystal clear freshwater springs, ancient forests, historic landmarks, places that inspire discovery, exploration, and adventure. Discover a new Florida on your next vacation. Call now for your free Florida vacation guide so you can start planning today.
Okay, we're going one step now. Yeah, really report.
In 2001, discover a part of Central Florida where the spirit is always poised for a launch. And the stage is always set for an odyssey. Call now for your free visitor guide and travel planning kit from Kennedy Space Center. We'll get you closer.
Tomorrow on the History Channel, covert clubs with powerful men have always threatened outsiders, but today some believe elite groups control everything from the price of oil to world peace, penetrate secret societies as Blood Brothers Week begins on History's Mysteries. Tomorrow night at 8 on the History Channel.
From the creator of the award-winning films The Civil War and Baseball comes Jazz, the story of America's music.
The way you wear your hat.
Introducing the best of Ken Burns' jazz, the soundtrack to the acclaimed PBS series.
The memory of all that.
20 of jazz music's legendary performers,
They can't take that
including Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Dave Brubeck, and Billie Holiday. Plus Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, Charlie Parker, Count Basie, Sarah Vaughan, and many others. The best of Ken Burns jazz. Call now and get the music the critics are calling the greatest recordings of the 20th century. The best of Ken Burns jazz. Own the ultimate collection of America's greatest music. Call now.
We now continue with America's five-star heroes.
By the middle of 1944, the five-star heroes had completely turned the tide of a vicious war that still held terrible fighting. But top American officers were now meshed into a beautifully coordinated machine that carried the Axis toward defeat in Western Europe and the Pacific. To MacArthur's rage, Nimitz was now preparing to accelerate the new strategy, a bypassing island-hopping drive across the Central Pacific that would compete with the general's own slogging southern push up New Guinea to the Philippines. Learning bitter, costly lessons at the Battle of Tarawa, Nimitz drove unimaginable power across the Central Pacific, including 19 carriers, 12 battleships, armadas of planes, and an awesome logistics train.
After Tarawa, the Admiral began to receive hate mail from mothers who had lost their son. I tried to screen these letters from him, but he insisted that he do them himself. He turned to me and said, "The hardest thing a commander-in-chief has to do is to send men to their death."
Now, under crushing naval barrages, carrier-based air armadas, flamethrowers, satchel charges, and sometimes just plain grenades and bayonets, the Japanese bastions fell to Nimitz. The Imperial fleet challenged him frontally in the Philippine Sea and suffered losses so horrendous that the battle became known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Nimitz drove through the Marshalls and Marianas. Eniwetok, Kwajalein, Saipan, Guam, and Tinian fell. Tokyo grew closer. MacArthur overcame all suggestions of bypassing the Philippines for a more direct thrust at Japan through the Central Pacific. He cited strategic, moral, and political necessity as only he could. On October 20th, 1944, he waded ashore at Leyte and proclaimed at this peak moment of his life that he had indeed returned. Just as he had predicted at the planning sessions, the Imperial fleet came out for a showdown battle to destroy his beachhead and was itself destroyed by fleets under Admirals Halsey and Kincaid.
One day, when I woke up, he said, "We're going down to Bataan today." And the way he said it, it was almost as if he was saying, "We're going to church or we're going to a funeral."
I see that the old flagstaff still stands. Have your troops hoist the colors to its peak, and let no enemy ever haul them down.
Old Glory was again raised over Bataan and Corregidor, and MacArthur at last knew the revenge and vindication that he had yearned after for 2.5 bitter years. The eastern retreat of the Germans toward the Siegfried Line became frantic and chaotic. Ike's choices of Bradley and Patton as ground leaders were paying off big under Hap Arnold's bristling air umbrella. On December 16, 1944, the day Dwight Eisenhower was promoted to 5-star general, Hitler threw 24 divisions in 2 panzer armies against the thinly held Ardennes sector on the Belgian-German border. The attack hurled reeling American forces backward and drove a deep bulge into the U.S. lines.
The bulge was Ike's greatest moment in the war. That sounds odd when you think about the decision to go ahead on D-Day, but the bulge was a challenge that he had not had to face before. An overwhelming enemy counteroffensive coming out of the blue. A lot of people went into panic. Eisenhower didn't. From the first, he said, this is an opportunity. They've come out from behind the Siegfried line. They're out in the open. We're going to make them pay for this. We're going to punish them. He took full command of the Allied Expeditionary Force and made a series of very rapid decisions. Who to move into Bastogne, the 101st Airborne, get the 82nd up there at St. Vith, bring Patton in from the south, give Monty command of 1st Army to the north of the bulge because Brad doesn't have any communications with him anymore.
It took weeks of terrible fighting before the original line was regained in late January 1945. But Eisenhower's firm hand and Bradley's logistical genius had shattered the best and almost the last of the German army.
General Bradley learned of the German surrender in a telephone call at his headquarters in Bad Bildungen. Reich called him in the morning and said, it's over.
Admiral Nimitz and General MacArthur were promoted to 5-star rank at about the same time. We prepared a set of 5-star insignia for the Admiral to wear to visit MacArthur. When MacArthur spotted the 5-star, his face fell, and we are told that he had his staff stay up all